Josh Green here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Marnie Swindells, all the way from The Apprentice and former boxer, of course. Marnie, how are you doing?
I am very well, thank you, Josh. I'm excited to be speaking to you today.
Yeah, we've been trying to get this sorted for a long time, haven't we? So glad to finally be here.
We're here now.
We are indeed. Want to start off by talking about your boxing career as such, really. I've read about it online, and it seems like an interesting route into the sport. Can you just give me sort of an overview of that?
Yeah, I started boxing when I was 17, when I was back up north. Didn't really have much going on in my life at the time. I just had that natural aggression that all teenagers have. And I was never sporty. I actually hated sports. There was just something about boxing that clicked. Something mentally about it, something physically. We just gelled really well, me and boxing. So I carried on in the sport. I competed for many years, but it was at a time when there wasn't as many opportunities to fight for women as there is now. So I moved away from it and into law, and then found my way back to it as a coach and now as a business owner.
Okay, so when you originally went into boxing, what were the goals you set yourself then? Was it potentially a career, or were you just going in for fun, really?
I had no idea I would have done so many different things in boxing, and it would have become such a big part of my life. To be totally honest, I just wanted to fight. I always had that bit of aggression built up inside me, and for the first time in my life, getting in the ring, that was actually celebrated, and that's such a unique thing, because if you're aggressive in work or school, you're shunned for it. So to get into the boxing ring and for people to encourage it and celebrate it, that was such a novel thing. And I just fell in love with the sport. I fell in love with everything it stood for, everything you had to be in order to succeed at it. I just loved it. And as with everyone who's in boxing, they'll say that once you're in, you can't get out. It's just a case of maneuvering through different capacities.
Yeah, couldn't agree with that more. What were your sort of major achievements in that? I see at the amateur level you were quite a high achiever in boxing, really. You can just run us through what you achieved at that level.
Well, I don't really feel like I did achieve enough in boxing. I feel like even now, I feel like there's unfinished business between me and boxing. I feel like I could have taken it a lot further. But as I said, I just fell in love with different dimensions of the sport. I was a 2-time Haringey Gold champion. I got to the semi-finals in the National Amateur Championships. I did go up to GB. I had a few trials up there, didn't make the final cut. And yeah, I would love, I think it's still somewhere on my radar to maybe make a comeback one day and see how far I really can get.
Okay, we'll come to that in a minute, but I want to touch on being up there with GB. Who was up there at the time, and what was that experience like?
Well, it was a women's selection camp. So again, this was really early on. This was just after the 2012 Olympics. Women's boxing was still such a novel thing. People were still seeing women fight for the very first time. And so we went up there. I think there was around 40 of us. And then it was narrowed down to 10. So I made it to the final 10, and then not to the final 3 that they chose from that group. And those 3 that went on, I think they went on to try for the actual Olympics, and they went on to do really well. And then I came back and started focusing more on law and business.
You mentioned unfinished business with boxing. Obviously, you've got plenty to focus on at the moment, but do you genuinely feel like you would get back in the ring in some capacity?
Absolutely. I still try and spar now when I can, just to get it out my system. But as anyone in boxing will tell you, it's an all or nothing sport. It's not, as they say, you can't play boxing, so you can't do it half-heartedly. I would never make a comeback on a whim. It would be a full comeback, and I'd be coming for it all. So I'd have to wait till I really do have the space to take it seriously to do that. So for now, it's probably just a pipe dream. I've got so much going on, but it is still in me. It's still in me, Josh.
When you look at the landscape of boxing today, obviously you've got the professional side of the sport, and then you've got the more crossover side of the sport. Is that something that would appeal to you? Maybe not in terms of fighting, or maybe in terms of fighting, but also in terms of getting involved in that side of the sport as well.
When you say the crossover, what do you mean?
Like the things we see with misfits, so whether it be YouTubers or influencers, just people from outside a boxing landscape getting involved.
Uh, I'm a bit of a purist. I think,
Mhm.
you know, boxing is such a beautiful sport and it's got so much history. And I can't help but feel that the YouTube landscape sort of taints it a little bit. I mean, some YouTube boxers and some influencers getting involved in boxing, they're doing so well for themselves. And it's great to widen people's eyes to the sport who might not have necessarily saw it before. Um, but yeah, the amateur boxer, the grassroots boxer inside of me wants to keep it real.
And you sort a few of them out by getting in the ring and knocking them out.
Not quite that. I wish everybody well. Everybody who enters the ring, influencer, YouTuber, it takes a lot of grit and a lot of heart. So my utmost respect to them. But I do like to see, my favorite thing to see is the kids that have been in the gym for a long time, turning 17, turning 18, starting to look at their pathways, whether it's Olympics or pro boxing, and just seeing them grow. That's where the magic is for me.
Mm. You mentioned it earlier about how much it's progressed since you were at that camp in sort of 2011, 2012 time. We're
Yeah.
now seeing women's fights, headline cards. We're seeing all women's fight nights. What have you seen from the progression in the last decade?
Josh, it is crazy. It is a full 360 how far it's come. When I first called up my first gym and said, "Can I join?" I was met with someone saying, "Only if you're going to train with the boys. We don't train girls here," and it was all very very closed off. So, like you said, to now see full women's cards and selling out arenas, it's incredible. I actually was fortunate enough on the weekend. I sat ringside at a boxer event and I saw Caroline Dubois fight. And I have very old pictures of me and her back in 2012 sort of time of us in amateur squad days, and she was all skinny and small then. So was I. And just to see how far she's come and the platform that she has now, I think we're in a really good era for women's boxing.
Is it inspiring for you, not only on a boxing front, but business, I'm sure, as well, to see people that, I don't know whether you grew up seeing them in the GB setup or anything like that, but how much they've achieved in a short amount of time?
Yeah, well, when I was boxing, there was nobody doing it. I mean, everywhere I went, I would, even though my boxing was nowhere near as good as hers, I'd get compared to Nicola Adams because that's the only comparison anybody had. And now girls have so many different people to look up to, and they can really connect with the fighter that they feel they're most related to and represents them most. So I think it is so inspiring, and I think it's working. I think seeing women in the headline fights and having their own shows is really inspiring that next generation of younger girls to take the same path.
What are some sort of dream matchups that you'd like to see this year or in the next couple of years in the women's sport? Because it's something that I think people are now wanting to see. They want to see these matchups.
Well, all my fantasies came true in the Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall fight. I was waiting for that for so long. And actually, when I went up to GB, that was still a hot talking point. And the coaches at GB were telling us all the inside scoop on how Savannah Marshall felt winning and the mood around that fight. So when that fight happened, all my dreams came true. I was actually there on the night and I loved every minute of it.
Do you think we'll see a rematch of that in this year or maybe the next?
I'm praying we do. I really would hope so. I'd love to see it happen again. They're just both warriors. And to me, those two are, especially because I used to fight at 75 kilos. So for me, especially, they were the headliners in my mind throughout my whole boxing career. So yeah, I would love to see that again. Hopefully I might get front row seats this time. I was sat way back.
Do you think it would be at the time for Savannah Marshall to step up and really have that big victory? We've seen her get some great wins and some great performances, but you feel like she needs that statement performance, and it didn't happen first time against Claressa, but a win there would be a huge moment for her.
Yes, I mean, I think her amateur win against Claressa was her statement performance. it's had a legacy for this many years. It's irritated Claressa for this many years. And so I think even if she wasn't to have another fight and it wasn't to happen again, she can always hold on to the fact she did have it once. But I agree with you. I think to have a second bite at that cherry and to come away victorious would be her crowning moment. And to be honest, I don't know where she would go from there. Claressa is the ultimate one to beat. So I would love to see it.
Talk to me about the gym you're going to be opening up, Bronx Gym, in, well, not long now, I believe. Just talk me through that and where the idea came from and what you're expecting.
Josh, I could talk to you for hours about the gym. So my new gym, it's called Bronx. On Instagram, it's Bronx LDN. And it's opening on the 23rd of the 2nd, 2023, which I thought was a really nice date for people to remember. It's going to be, my whole premise for creating that gym was to try and bring together the two worlds of the hearty spit and sawdust substance that you get in the amateur gyms, mixed with the style and the sort of professional running of a higher end commercial gym. Because I know that in gyms that I've been in, it feels magic in there. The atmosphere is great, but the showers, the facilities, they're always so awful and run down. And so I've tried to marry up those two worlds and just create a one-of-a-kind gym. As it stands, there's no chain boxing gym. There's not one go-to name for gyms that just specialize in boxing. So that's my ultimate plan.
What sort of people are you expecting in this, Joe? Are you expecting to see people that want to make careers or even a white collar level, or are you just expecting people getting into boxing to be attending?
This really is going to be a gym for everyone from the people that never imagined they would be interested in boxing, all the way to champions who just need a home to train from. I really want it to be a place where those two worlds collide and you have the champions training and inspiring the everyday people. Because I find that a lot of people start off boxing just for the fitness or just to have a go at it, and find that they fall in love with it and they stay in the sport for years. They go on to have fights, and until you're in it, you don't know. So I'm hoping that it has that impact for a lot of people. I'm hoping it will be the home where people fall in love with boxing.
Mm-hmm. If you could pick 3 people to invite to the gym on opening day, what 3 names would you give me, Marnie?
That is a good question. And given, as I've just said, my fantasies about the Claressa Shields Savannah Marshall fight, they would have to be 2. I would have to invite both of them. Just I'm so inspired by them. Of course, the big man himself, AJ. If I could get him there, I would love that. And I think he epitomizes the sort of thing that I'm talking about inspiring young people, young kids who all look up to him. So to have him there would be an honor. And I have to say, given my interest in the business side of boxing, I'd love to see, I know this is more than 3, but I'd love to see Eddie Hearn, Ben Shalom. I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with them. I have some big ideas that I'd like to put forward. So yes, they would be my group.
You mentioned Eddie and Ben there. An interesting question for you. If you had to pick one business partner and fire one from Ben Shalom, Eddie Hearn, and Frank Warren, who are you picking?
Oh, difficult question. Eddie has the legacy and the experience and these amazing names, and he has to be respected completely for that. Whereas Ben Shalom, I feel like, is the underdog. He sort of came out of nowhere with boxer and has just gone on to do amazing things. I also feel connected to him because he's younger, and I'm only 28 myself, and I'm trying to make my name in the boxing world, so I respect him for that. So I have to say, sorry, Frank Warren, it would be out of those 2 who would get hired. And Frank, on this occasion, you're fired.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Marnie. Really appreciate it, and best of luck.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thanks for having me.